Joining me now, Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, Monica Crowley. Is this really fat shaming, or they're saying they don't believe his weight? And this is all, spun out of the Michael Wolff book, that his mental health is hit by, and we should note that his doctors said borderline obesity, right?
Yeah. Well, this is part of a much bigger picture that we've seen over the last really 2 years of the press treatment of Donald Trump. Because he represents an existential threat to the establishment on both sides, to the mainstream media, he must be destroyed. Because if he succeeds, it's over for all of them. So they've gone through a litany of attacks over the last 2 years. First, he was a Russian colluder. Then he was a sexual harasser. Then he is a racist. Now they're down to he's fat and does he wear dentures? I mean, this is not going to end throughout his entire presidency. They're going to try to throw the kitchen sink at this man, even questioning his weight and, does he have his own teeth? If this weren't so dangerous, Liz, this would be comical. But unfortunately, this is very dangerous, the way the press is treating this president.
I don't want to get wonky here, but, the Democrats and the Republicans, they really don't have to perform. There's no term limits. We don't have debate really about policy issues in the press conference rooms anymore. It's all about rhetoric and the personal attack, because that's the easy way out. That's the easy thing to do. The tough thing to do is the heavy lifting of policy debates, right? I think the American people are tired of it. I mean, I was out sick for 3 days. I came back. I'm thinking this is like a hamster wheel. It's like a go-kart race in the D.C. media beltway. They're chasing each other, saying the same thing.
Yes, and so they're driven by two things, Liz. One, they're driven by their absolute hatred for Donald Trump on so many levels.
They're mad at him.
He
is exaggerated. He shouldn't say the things he says. We get it. And he should just cut that out. But his policies seem to be working.
They hate him personally. They hate his politics. They hate his wealth. They hate his style. They hate everything about him. They also hate his politics and his agenda. But what's interesting about what they're doing is they're so furious because with his tweets, with his behavior, he's beating them at their own game.
What do you mean?
He's actually holding up a mirror. When he does some of these stunts and things and they get so furious, he's actually playing the game better than they do.
Oh, wait a minute. You're saying, here, America, this is the swamp in action. Right?
Yes, and he's holding up a mirror to them. And when Joe Scarborough and some of these other people go on television and they mock his weight, he goes right back at them. He goes right at the Morning Joe crowd. He sends out a tweet. They cannot stand being called on the carpet and actually having the game played better than they play it by the president.
Is this how the Democrats are going to win back any control of either chamber of Congress? By the personal attacks. In other words, it's going to be about the personal attacks of the president. He's unfit to be president. The 25th Amendment, which is impossible to execute under any circumstance. I mean, can they really run on that? Because the president's going to say, look at the economy. We may now have 3 straight quarters of 3% growth.
From now through November, the president should only be tweeting about the state of the economy. He's not going to listen to me on this, but he should. He should be talking about job creation. He should be talking about the success of the tax cut bill. He should be talking about consumer confidence.
Wait a second. Midterms are about opposition votes, right? People are angry. They get up out of their seat, the couch. They're mad about something. They go in and they vote. It's usually an anti-vote in the midterms. I mean, so how does that play right now with what's going on in D.C. and the economy?
Well, this is why the president and the Republicans should all be sticking to the same songbook, which is the state of the economy and how they are improving in concrete ways the lives of their constituents, the American people. They should be talking about that only from now until November, because you're right. The Democrats are only going to stick to one thing. They've personalized all these races. They personalized it to Trump, and they have nationalized each one of these races around Donald Trump.
Would the media have gone after Hillary Clinton's weight?
Are you kidding me? She's a woman? No way. And yes, the president likes his junk food, but you know what? We've had a lot of presidents with a lot of serious issues. JFK was like this walking horror show of pills and injections. Barack Obama was a smoker. I didn't hear the press corps asking about the health risks about the president smoking all the time, right? Now we've got Donald Trump, and he had a hot dog, and oh my God, he needs to be impeached.
He made so many people mad. He got people mad with his tweets. He personally attacked people, and it's coming back at him. But here's the thing: when people go into the voting booth and they pull the curtain, they're about to pull the lever. What's in their head? What do they say?
They're going to judge the president on his policies in this first year.
What are you going to do for me?
Yes, and what have you done for me?
Yeah.
And I think the economy now is really in a position to explode. The stock market, consumer confidence, unemployment. I mean, these numbers are all really good.
Okay.
And I think when people go to vote in November, they're going to remember that and know that the Republicans and the president delivered for them.
Great to see you, Monica. Come back soon.
Thank
Love having you on.